Hi friends, we are preparing a Dumbo storybook to create a junk journal. So as you can see, I have removed the book pages from the book, and here it is, and I will show you in this video how I did that. We will have 6 signatures, and they're not all the same number of pages, and the reason we will have 6 signatures is because of the way these books are glued together. They are not put together like little golden books. They are actually bound with glue, which makes them a little bit more difficult to use. But I have devised a way to disassemble them and keep them in chronological order. So that is what I have done in today's video. Now, the other thing that I will show you in today's video was how I am making a fabric pocket, and it's going to be a fabric pocket that you have things that can slide in, but also you'll be able to put some tags in the top. So that's going to be something that I'll show you that I did. And lastly, I will show you how let me get this out of the way. This paper right here, oops, let's turn upside down, here we go. This paper right here is almost 100 years old. It is from 1937, and it was very, very fragile. So what I did was I Mod Podged it, and then I added this lace in the center because as I was Mod Podging it, the center spread. It broke open. So I thought, well, let me put some lace in there, and that will repair it in a decorative way. I have created it into also a pocket. And so I'll show you how I did that. Now let's stuff this guy back in there. And then the other thing that I did, I have another piece of music paper. And this one I did basically the same thing. I Mod Podged it, and then I put the lace in the center to hold it together. But I didn't Mod Podge this side. There's no need to do both sides unless you really, really want to. I wanted to share with you the items that I pulled from my cabinets that we are going to use in the creation of this Dumbo altered book / junk journal. I went to the flea market recently and I found some vintage ephemera right here. So I want to use some of this in the journal. I have my miniature doily and then my large doily, and they're both yellow. And I'm going to be using some yellow paper. Here's some yellow coffee dyed paper. I pulled pink just in case we want to use it, not sure. I pulled blue because there are definitely some blue pages in the story. This is a piece of Sears and Roebuck calendar that is vintage. This is from a coloring book that I have, and I grabbed that just because I thought if we wanted to add it, we could. Then I have some stationery that I had picked up at the thrift store. Let's get started disassembling this book. So the first thing I do is grab my little razor pen, and I'm going to go ahead and have to cut this signature out of the spine. You could see there that I was sort of tugging the pages, and the reason I did that is because this book is bound with glue. It's not bound with thread or anything else. It's truly glued together. So you have to go about disassembling this book a little bit differently than you might others. Of course, I am trying to create as little damage as humanly possible. So I've got my razor pen, and I'm just going to cut away the signature from the spine. And I was tugging on the pages just to give myself a little bit of playroom. So I've done it, and now I'm taking a close look at the pages that I pulled out, and I can see the way that they have them folded. So I'm going to try to explain this to you. So right here in this little patch that I'm holding are like 4 tiny signatures, but then they are all glued together. And it looks like to me, if I'm careful, I will be able to pull these apart, keeping the proper pages intact. And that's what's going to create the signatures. And I want to tell you something that's a little bit weird. So you would think that it would be an even number. So sometimes there's like two full spreads, which equals 4 pages. But in the way that they put these together, every now and then, they just glue like an extra page in there. So you might have 5 in there. So if you ever work with one of these books, that's just something to keep in mind. The first page got split, so I am going to go ahead and tape that together. I am using masking tape, and I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. Instead of washi, for one, the masking tape is very strong. It will last an extremely long time. I do not trust washi tape, so whereas I think it's fun for decorating, I always end up having to tape over it anyway. So I'm just going to avoid the whole washi thing and use a tape that I know works. The first thing I like to do is decide what pages I want to put inside of the journal. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I chose some plain yellow paper because the person that this is being made for, her favorite color is yellow. This is a custom order, and her mom told me that her favorite color is yellow. So that's why I chose that. And that's also why I chose the doily with the yellow flowers on it. So you're going to see a lot of yellow throughout this journal. I have a piece here. This is a piece of my blue coffee dyed paper, and I think because there's a lot of blue in this storybook, I think that'll look great. And I'm sort of toying around with using this pink. As I move on, I might shuffle papers around, but this is just a great way to get me started to see how I want this journal to come together. Now, because of the way this book is glued together, and I want to be able to keep things in chronological order, I'm going to have one of those signatures that there's no plain paper inside of for journaling, so I'll be creating a lot of tags for those sheets. I have some thrifted stationery that I'm going to go ahead and use, but because it's plain on the back, I might end up turning it into a full page pocket. I hope that makes sense. And then here is our 100-year-old music paper. This book was published in 1937, and the owner of the book actually signed the inside cover and dated it 1937, which I think is really fabulous. So we're going to be using 2 sheets of that. Something I want to mention, just in case you do decide that you want to work with one of these types of storybooks that are glued together, is that once you disassemble the book and you're thinking about in your mind where you want the papers to go that you're putting in, it's very important for you to find the center of each of the little original signatures. And the reason for that is because it's hard to explain. The way it's constructed, the glue takes up space. I think that's the best way for me to describe it to you. The glue takes up space, so not all the pages open flat. And if you do not find the actual center signature when you go to bind the book with your thread, it won't pop through correctly. I have some fun blue paper that I recently created, so I definitely want to add a page or 2 of that inside this journal. Let's go ahead and do some cleanup and page prep. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the edges off of this doily because they are hanging over a little too far. The next thing we are going to do is prepare these vintage music pages. Like I mentioned before, they're almost 100 years old, so they're quite fragile. So we need to sort of strengthen them so that they can last the test of time. But the first thing we're going to do is cut them to size. So I have the height corrected now. And now, actually, to double them up on the edges, because I'm going to create page pockets, I'm going to fold the edge over and glue that. And that way we'll have a little bit of extra strength for the pocket that we're going to be making. Now we're going to go ahead and Mod Podge this paper. It will give it some strength, it will protect it, and it will keep it from falling apart. When paper gets really old, it basically starts to disintegrate, and we definitely do not want that to happen to our paper. So we're going to go ahead and Mod Podge it, and that way it will last many, many more years. And did you see how fragile it is? The center pulled apart just by me pulling a brush across it. So I'm really glad that we are taking the time to add the Mod Podge and give this paper some strength. Once we're done spreading this Mod Podge around, we're going to set it aside. I'm going to go ahead and do the other page as well, but I don't think I need to do that on camera. Alright, they are dry enough for me to be able to work with them a little bit. And what we're going to do is we are going to add some lace to the spine area. I chose I almost said lemon. That's so funny. I chose yellow because that is the recipient's favorite color. And I chose a wide one just because I liked it. I didn't go wide for any particular reason, but I did think that if I wanted to, I could put like a tag in it. So at any rate, and I don't have to do that, but I could. So we're going to use this. It's about 3 inches wide, and we're going to use our Fabri-Tac. We're going to put Fabri-Tac on each side of the center and then just press that into place. All right, let's get that trimmed up so that we can move forward and so that I can turn this paper into a giant pocket. This stationery is only decorative on one side, so I thought what I would do is put the music paper next to it, but then I would go ahead and glue the pages together to create a big pocket. So you'll be able to put something in and out of the edge, like, the very edge, the side of it. So all we have to do is make sure that they are like butted right up next to each other. That's very important to not have any space between the pages. Then once you feel good about that, then just go ahead and put a strip of glue down the top and then down the bottom, and then just press the 2 pages together. I found some fabric at the thrift store, and the colors are just like the colors in the story. So I definitely want to use some of that. And the first thing that we're going to do with it is we are going to create a pocket. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to do is trim it to size. in order to make the pocket. And this fabric is actually 2 layers, so I'll have the benefit of being able to make, trying to how to explain this. I will be able to make a pocket that tags can slide into, but then also because it's 2 layers, I'll be able to slide some tags right in the very, very top of it because it's 2 layers. I hope that makes sense. You'll see as it comes together. I'm going to use glue as opposed to sewing because if you were to sew this flap over, then you wouldn't be able to get a tag in the top of the pocket. That being said, I had to think about this while I was gluing because I didn't want the glue to seep through and then end up gluing the fabric together. So I'm just going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to pop it in the top there, and the glue might get on the paper, but it will not get on the other piece of fabric and glue itself shut. The last thing that I would like to share with you today is the disassembling of the actual book cover. Once the pages are out, it's actually very easy. So you can see when you flip it over like this, you can see the actual hard spine. And then there's these 2 little soft edges before you hit the firm sort of cover part. And that's where I choose to cut it. And then in order just to clean it up and make sure it's straight, I like to trim the edges, but do not trim the edges all the way down to the firm part where you feel the cardboard. If you do that, your cover will turn out shorter than your pages. And I know that because it is a mistake that I made, I think the first time I ever made one of these books. Appreciate you coming over to hang out. I hope that you were able to either craft along with me or enjoy a nice cup of coffee or whatever. I just appreciate you being here. I hope you all know that. And thanks for watching. See you soon.